So, after tackling Jeff the Killer, I decided we need to talk about the real king of urban legends from the 2010s, the Slender Man. A tall, pale, faceless man donning a three-piece suit and an undetermined number of tentacles, we'll say. So, why did this urban legend have such a chokehold in our generation? Let's talk about it. Now, I personally remember obsessing over the Slender Man. I mean, the stories, the pictures, marble hornets, but getting a little bit ahead of myself. My biggest memory about this one is I was taking a Greyhound bus to Chicago for a middle school field trip. I was probably like 12 at the time, maybe. And the bus broke down, in quotes, in a foggy wooded area. The bus driver just had to pee. And people started to talk about seeing Slender Man in the wood line. And like the middle schooler I was, I believed them. And I scanned that tree line waiting for him to pop out at any second. And shockingly, like I said, the bus did not break down. The driver was gone for like 2 minutes, maybe. Like, he just had too big of a Chipotle bowl or something. And no tentacles, like, broke through the window and grabbed me out either. Like, no glitchy effects around me or nothing. So, yeah. It's funny to think about though. But before we start, let me know down in the comments what your experience with Slenderman is. I'd really like to hear if anyone else has any stupid stories like mine. But the Slenderman originated on the Something Awful forum in 2009 as part of a Photoshop contest. And this is the year after the Jeff the Killer image started spreading around the internet, and people were hungry for more shocking images like it to make viral and famous. Now, the Slenderman entry into this contest won by a landslide, and I mean, I can see why. Take a look at these two images and the little newspaper clip captions that came with them. Now, this put Slenderman in front of a decently sized audience, but pretty soon it started to spread like wildfire over the internet. Online horror story communities were incredibly active at this time, with Jeff the Killer popping up, Smile Dog, all that stuff, and they quickly pumped out more Photoshop pictures, endless creepypastas that all contradicted each other, tons of fan art of, well, really cool fan art where like Slenderman was doing his thing, and then other ones where they made him like fun, which is interesting, and plenty of other stuff that I'm probably not mentioning. Now, the downside to this is that he quickly got out of the creator's control, so talking about his backstory or his lore is really difficult because there's no real set canon with the amount of stuff that just, like I said, contradicts each other over and over again. But all we really have is the original pictures from the contest and those newspaper clippings, and then everything else on its own. And honestly, that's a great start for an urban legend. So after this initial wave of pictures, stories, and fan art, and etc., people began to put real time and effort into the Slenderman lore, and they were doing it beforehand, but I'm talking about like teams of people putting real dedicated effort into producing content around this. And the two main ones we're going to talk about here are the Slenderman the 8 Pages game and Marble Hornets. So Marble Hornets came first, we'll talk about that one. Marble Hornets was a super early internet ARG, and if you don't know, that's an alternate reality game. So essentially it's a fake, scary story or video set where they put things in it, they pretend it's real, and the audience is kind of supposed to piece things together to bring the narrative along. And this one was a video catalog of someone named Jay Merrick, and he had a collection of tapes that he called them, trying to figure out what happened to a group of friends led by someone named Alex recording the movie Marble Hornets. So this series came out in 2009 and it went all the way until 2014. They had a ton of seasons. It was all on YouTube, and as a kid, this terrified me. Not only did I fully believe this was real, I was on the edge of my seat waiting to see just a glimpse of the Slender Man between the random glitching, and I think they actually started it where he gets glitchy around electronics and it's hard to see, which is perfect for an ARG with no Photoshop or CGI budget or whatever. But I remember sitting there for hours back in like 2010, just scrolling through videos, like eyes right next to the screen, trying to see it in the background. And man, you had to be there. It was really awesome. Now, this series made the Slenderman explode in popularity, so YouTube was still in its, we'll call it its toddler stage, and the quality and mystery of this series was unmatched by anything else in the platform. And to complete the trifecta of the 2000s New Age media with Photoshop, videos on YouTube, of course a video game had to come out. And that's where Slender the 8 Pages comes in. For free, which was a huge bonus. And this was a 2011 first-person horror game that took the internet by storm. Not only did big names at the time like PewDiePie and Markiplier expose it to millions, but there were entire channels dedicated to playing this game, talking about the lore behind it, and just anything related to the Slenderman. But the gameplay in this was really simple, right? So all you had to do was walk around a forest and collect 8 pages with, I don't even want to call it Slenderman lore. It has like 3 words or maybe an image or something. And you do this, and as you collect more pages, the Slenderman is more aggressive. Your camera glitches out, he jump scares you in the woods, and eventually he'll get you, he'll grab you with your tentacles, and you can't escape. Now, I played this briefly 13 years later, and it's not exactly a hidden gem indie game that would take the world by storm like Lethal Company. And I'm going to be honest, hopefully this isn't controversial, but it has almost zero replayability. The fact that this game was able to become so popular when it's the literal gameplay loop of walking in a dark forest and clicking E on pages with the same jump scare, I mean, you could put anything out with the Slenderman on it and his fans would come running. And this is just a perfect example of how much of a pop culture icon this creepypasta became. So, the ending of the last chapter sounds great if you're trying to get attention for a game, a video, or a movie or whatever. I mean, if I put out this video back then, I mean, Jesus, dude, who would have done numbers? But it's 2024, what can you do? But what if it goes too far? What if somebody gets too into it and too obsessed for the wrong reasons? So there are a few Slenderman movies, one based on Marble Hornets, which is not as good as the series in my opinion, and another loosely based on the legend. Neither are like super great movies, but the third one out is actually a documentary. So the documentary follows a real-life crime that shocked the entire US and abroad, and it's quote-unquote inspired by the Slenderman story. And in 2014, just to give you a brief rundown, 2 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin had an obsession with anything Slenderman related. Like, we're talking fan art, all the stories, the games, everything. And according to them, they believed he was actually real, and they found a list on the internet telling you what you have to do to summon him. And apparently they decided to start with sacrificing a child, so they lured their classmate, who was also a 12-year-old girl, out into the woods, and they stabbed her 19 times and then fled the scene. So thankfully the young girl survived the attack, which is insane. I mean, she crawled several miles and got help and survived that. I mean, I don't even think I could do that as a grown man, so like, props to her. But the 2 would-be murderers are obviously evil people, and like I said, the victim was a complete badass who's actually living their best life now, which is cool. But unfortunately, being evil people, they decided to go all in on these police interviews, and it led to an insane moral panic. So they told detective all kinds of stuff, just random shit that totally is not true. But the main thing that was latched onto is they said they saw online and they believed that the Slenderman would come and attack their families if they didn't murder the classmate. Which, let's be real, they didn't think that, but the news media ran with this. I mean, they really ran with this. Like, they knew this was going to do numbers because, like I said, anything with the Slenderman on it was going to do numbers back then. But They let parents know everywhere that if they let their kids have anything to do with this urban legend, they would turn into satanic psycho murderers overnight. Now, Slenderman is still incredibly popular, and it's fun to go back and look at the images and stories every now and then, but it's a little bit of a shell of what it used to be, which this is going to happen with everything over time, but this moral panic really took the popularity down a notch. Instead of having an endless stream of new people discovering it, anytime it was mentioned, you would hear people be like, "Oh, you know that like inspires murderers, right?" Which, come on, no, it doesn't. But the popularity level it reached in general was never going to go away, no matter how much activist groups might have tried. Which, yes, there's activist groups that try to get it banned legally, but for me and most people, The Slender Man is a fun, scary story from our childhoods that's just cool to reminisce on and think about. And I hope as time goes on, this urban legend comes back a little bit more, and I hope it stays as something fun and a little bit scary rather than something real.